1968 to 2024, here's how much the Mustang has changed from its first generation to the seventh generation. Our first generation Mustang is a 1968 Mustang California Special with a 289 V8.
And this 2024 Mustang GT is also owned by TFL, and it's got the 5-liter Coyote V8.
The 289 under the hood of our California Special makes 195 horsepower. Not a ton of power for a V8. And this back in the day was called the Challenger V8. It's got a 2-barrel carburetor and it's paired to a C4 3-speed transmission.
Little different story under the hood of the new one. This is the 5-liter Coyote V8, which in the standard Mustang GT makes 480 horsepower. Way more power than in the old Mustang. We have a little bit of a boost here because we have the performance exhaust, so power's bumped up to 486 horsepower and 418 pound-feet of torque, mated to a 10-speed transmission, so way more power and way more gears in the transmission than you'll find in that 68 Mustang.
Another noticeable difference between these two cars is their curb weight. This weighs just under 4,000 pounds, whereas this weighs closer to 3,000 pounds, so it's an almost 1,000-pound difference between the two. Interestingly enough, though, the wheelbase on this old Mustang is actually an inch longer than it is on the new Mustang, and the new Mustang is about 4 inches wider. But one of the most noticeable differences between these two cars side by side are the 14-inch wheels with hubcaps on the 68 versus these 18-inch wheels that are on the Mustang. And this is not even the biggest wheel that you can get on a brand new Mustang, and they're also way wider. Both of these cars have a square setup, so the same size tires front to back, but this is a 205 width tire on the old Mustang versus a 255 on the new Mustang, and again, you can even go wider than that. One thing these two cars have in common, however, is a whole bunch of really cool features. Now, the 68 Mustang has one of my favorite features in any old car, and that is your fill here in the center, which means you can pull up to a fuel pump on either side, which is really nice, and it all hides behind this Mustang logo. And this car, being a California Special, also got a few extra goodies. It got these stripes down the side, those side vents, and it got the rear end from a Shelby. A couple other cool things about this car are the turn signal indicators that are built into these little hood vents here. Are they actually vents? Oh yeah. Sure enough, I don't know how much venting that actually does, but they are open. And we've also got hood pins, which is always cool.
Now, this new Mustang also has a functional hood vent at the front, but we don't have any cool turn signal indicators. But what we do have are some really massive Brembo brakes, which is a really nice upgrade considering you have 486 horsepower. But this has one really neat trick up its sleeve that the old Mustang can't even come close to, and that's the active exhaust. Even Case, who's behind the camera, I don't think he can disagree that this sounds incredible, and it's pretty impressive that Ford is able to sell a car this loud from the factory. It sounds epic, but there's some things you can play around with. So if I press this little Mustang emblem here, we've got a couple different sound modes or exhaust modes, because this is an active exhaust with flaps that open, so we can quiet it down. There's our standard mode. We also have a sport exhaust mode and a really loud race mode. And we brought our sound meter. We were able to steal it from Andre today, so we're gonna do a quick sound check, see how much that actually changes the sound level. All right, Case, so this is the standard mode.
I saw 112 there.
Woo! All right, let's go up to sport.
Similar amount of noise, so I think when you get into the throttle enough, it'll open up one way or another.
Yeah.
About 113 and a half.
Okay, so that was the race mode. What's it doing idling right now in track mode?
We're seeing about 60.
All right, and now if I drop to quiet?
About 56.
Okay, and now here's a rev in quiet.
Oh yeah, under 90. Not bad. By comparison, I only have one sound setting, and it is on, running. So what are we idling at?
Idling right about 65-ish.
Okay, so a little louder than your quiet mode at idle. Woo!
barely breaking 100, like 100.5.
Okay, so it's definitely quieter, but it's not super quiet.
I wouldn't call it quiet.
Inside of the classic Mustang, we get an absolutely beautiful, elegant interior. This is stunning, especially in this shade of blue. Two-tone seats, very simple, not even headrests on these seats. Gorgeous door cards, also two-tone, nice chrome strips, and this absolutely iconic double binnacle dash that we have here. This is a Mustang classic, and we've got a beautiful set of gauges, very simple, thin steering wheel. This interior is not sophisticated. There's not a ton of tech or anything, obviously, in this old car, but the design is beautiful.
The interior of this new Mustang is unfortunately not quite as special as the old one. It's still a really nice place to be, but it doesn't spark the same kind of emotion you feel when you get into that old one, especially in terms of smell too. There's just this scent that comes out of that old car, but this still, like I said, is a really nice, comfortable spot to be in a car that makes 486 horsepower. One thing I really love are these screens. They're really colorful, responsive, good placement. I'm a big tech nerd, so having all the modern screens in a car like this is important, but I will say the center screen does bum me out just a little bit because we've kind of been working our way through all the different generations of Mustang here at TFL, and for so long, even in the new ones, Ford was sticking to that old school style you saw in the 68 Mustang, even down to the shape and the fonts they used and the speedometer. It all looked like the old school one, and they recently kind of went away from that with these digital screens, which is a little bit of a miss. There are a bunch of different modes you can cycle through, so drag strip, slippery, you have a custom mode, normal, and back to sport, but you can also change the display modes. So you go into cluster theme, and we're in normal right now, but you can change it to Fox body, and there you've got a little bit of an older school dash setup. So maybe down the line with some over-the-air updates, they could add some even more themes, and maybe eventually we will get the California Special 68 Mustang as a theme in this 2024 Mustang GT. How the fuck do I have two of these?
Oh yeah, you sure do. I couldn't tell you. Oh, I've got two of them too.
In case one breaks?
You know, I don't know.
Where was one for the back? No.
This is yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting seatbelt setup. This is my first time, well, technically my second time driving this car. I pulled it out of the garage, took it up and down the road real quick, the dirt road here, just to get it warmed up. But pretty cool to be behind the wheel.
Yeah, this is quite an experience, and like I said earlier, you get in this, and for me it's the smells that do it. I mean, you plop yourself in these really cushy seats, you smell the motor start up, and brings me back to a day I wasn't around for.
The other thing that's crazy about this car, straight off the bat, well, a couple things. For one, the steering is light as any tractor I've ever driven. Super overboosted steering that you
definitely
can turn
lighter than the new
with
one.
a finger. 100%. One thing that's not lighter than the new one is applying the brakes. I was noticing as we started going downhill there, you got to put a lot of force into this pedal. I'm not sure if that's mostly a characteristic of our particular Mustang. Maybe it needs a little bit of brake work, but I'm having to push this pedal pretty hard to slow us down, even as slow as we're going right now.
I'm sure it's a combination of the two. This is not, you know, a fully restored 68 Mustang, so brakes are probably a little bit tired, but it also doesn't have the Brembo setup of the new ones.
No. I'm sure the brakes were never fantastic.
No.
Ours might be even a little worse than that.
I just noticed I don't have a rear view mirror on my side.
Yeah, a side mirror here on the left, but not on your side, which not uncommon back in the 60s. But
so.
Our visibility out of this car, however, is pretty fantastic because we've got these thin pillars all the way around. So even though I don't have a mirror over there, turn my head, I can see everything that's to the side of me and behind me as well. All right, coming on to the paved section here, let's give it the beans, as Tommy would say. 3-speed automatic.
Doesn't exactly throw you backwards.
No, you don't need the headrest to keep your head from flying back.
No.
It's pretty subtle acceleration. Back in the day, I'm sure it was pretty impressive, but by today's standards, it's not fast.
No, pretty subtle sound too, but that's not why you buy one of these old Mustangs. It's not to go flying down the road.
No,
it's for the nostalgia.
It's for the look and the experience, and this has all of that. It's also a pretty soft, plush ride going down the road.
Yeah, especially over the dirt, you know, some of those little potholes, we weren't getting bounced around at all, but yeah, you crest some of these hills and the whole car just kind of floats and settles back down, and it's a really comfortable spot to be.
It's definitely a cruiser, not a super high performance vehicle, obviously, especially by today's standards, but really nice to go cruising around in.
What did we pay for this?
So this car was about $30,000, which is not on the low end as far as classic Mustangs go, but this car is also in really good shape. It's been very well taken care of, 43,000 miles, so this is a pretty nice example.
Yeah, I mean, $30,000 for a classic Mustang that's over 50 years old with 43,000 miles on it, super low miles, in a condition you could just, right now, take this to a Cars and Coffee or a car show as it sits.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty cool.
Case, you know what I wouldn't feel so comfortable doing in the old one?
What's that?
A hard launch.
Ooh, yeah, that one puts your head back.
Yeah, a little more than the old one.
Even with the automatic transmission, which in my opinion dulls the experience a little bit of this powertrain, it still throws you back, and it is startling acceleration in this car.
Yeah, it keeps going and keeps going, especially when it shifts up like for that second time. I mean, it keeps pulling hard, and yeah, it keeps you pinned back in your seat. You definitely got to keep your eyes on the road. This isn't a Sunday cruiser like the old one.
No, just under 500 horsepower from a regular Mustang GT, naturally aspirated, is an insane figure. Affluent high school parking lots in about 8 years are going to be a terrifying place to be, because
yes,
when this car gets to be even more affordable, oh man, that's a lot of power.
Yeah, that's going to be a scary time, but yeah, something about the sound of this.
Oh, it's spectacular, and it's really cool to be able to quiet it down just at the push of a button.
Yeah, I mean, cruise through a neighborhood, you're pulling in for the night, and yeah, you can barely hear it anymore. All I hear is tire noise right now.
Yeah, don't want to wake up your parents when you're coming home late.
Exactly. But yeah, this is, I mean, all in all, a totally different experience, a well screwed together car. It feels really solid, and in the new one, it's all about performance.
Aside from the engine note, this is also a quieter interior. I'd say it's an even more comfortable car to sit in, despite the fact that you can tell the chassis of this car, the structure of this car is definitely stiffer than in the old one. Even so, over bumps, this modern suspension is just as compliant, if not even more compliant, and these seats are pretty supportive. So this car doesn't have the performance pack, so it's not quite as focused as some other variants of the Mustang, and it makes this a very good cruiser. This car can blast down the highway and do it pretty comfortably.
Yeah, totally. $47,000 was the MSRP on this Mustang GT, which I think for the amount of car you're getting here, with the engine you get under the hood, all the tech and everything, I think that's a pretty good deal.
Again, almost 500 horsepower. I know this is a pretty base level Mustang GT. We're still rocking cloth seats. There's not a lot of fancy features going on with this car, but again, you just can't get past that horsepower figure. 486 horsepower. That's so much. It's insane. So how much has the Mustang changed over the years? Unsurprisingly, it's changed a ton. This new car has more than 3 times as many gears in its transmission than this old car. It's also got almost 2.5 times the horsepower that this old car has, and it is a lot more usable on today's roads as a daily driver. It's a really fantastic car, but you really can't beat the nostalgia of the old car either. One way or another, it's awesome to see these two side by side, and hopefully very soon we can even put these two on the drag strip. Let me know what you think of that in the comments below. Thanks to Alex behind the camera for helping me with this video, and we'll catch you in the next.